And if we stretch those things out, then we don't have to disadvantage people in our language, which already sets us up in a hierarchy that no longer serves us, and sets us up with believing that we are the point, navel gazing, when really we are part of the ecosystem. And it's understanding on a regular basis that we're part of the ecosystem, part of the earth. We're not separate from it. We're crawling on her belly and part of her at all times. That will make us able to, keep up with this transformation that we have to do.
One of the things that's been really exciting for me to see, and again, part of it is my own limitation. I know people have been saying this to me for a long, long time, and I'm not the sharpest tack in the box. I'm just kind of seeing it now. And we've talked about it is art as a strategy of organizing. And then people have been talking to me about this for years, but I haven't quite understood it until recently, this idea that's a limited view of it. Really right now, this is the way that I kind of understand it. Right now, we think about organizing, or we think about moving some of these policy decisions as how do we change these issues? And the issue isn't the point, and the organizing and the art isn't really a tool. It's actually the big goal. And again, what I'm trying to communicate is just this idea of, as we move away from issues and we move towards values, then we can live out this interconnected values that you're talking about, and doing that in a way that is reflective of those values, being in relationships that's reflective of the values, which will then get us to a sustainable world a lot faster than making sure that we have less cars to drive, or you know what I mean? I mean, these intermediate steps of tackling issues it has its limitations.
Well, the reason I think it's critical is because we're talking about systemic change. We're talking about shifting the swarm mind, which isn't going to work with the point and shoot issue. It's just too exhausting. Right. We have to be able to behold people with all of our issues. All of them at once, you know what I mean? Right. And it's only by being connected to each other that we figure out how to, because nobody wants to do it alone. Like, oh, yeah, I'll stop driving the car when we all stop driving the car. Right. And that's true. Until the system, you can only do so much until the rest of the environment shifts, until you're swarmed, until we shift. And that's why it's critical to me.
Well, maybe you want to talk, Shalini, about some of the sort of, and I don't know, again, that was just my way of explaining it, and it's limited as I am, but of some other, I mean, just as an example, some of the things that I've seen recently, just in the last, 5 and 10 years, is ways of thinking that are completely different, ones that we just wouldn't have been able to conceptualize. And I think one of the things that just was reading about around this scarcity is this concept about, how wasteful our food system is, right? So we think we have a very efficient food system, or my kids remind me that we do. You go there if you're hungry, you go to the grocery store and you buy some food. But if you look at the level of waste from plant to through my dinner plate, that's about 50%. There's 50% production waste in that, And just as a way of being able to conceptualize, I don't know, I think I'm getting lost in my own conversation. But anyway, sorry, this is what I talk too much. So, Shalini, back to you. I should look for one of my questions I wrote. So you said they were good. Well, anyway, do you know what I'm talking about at all? Is that making sense? This idea of, okay, no. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I think...
Save me. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's an increasing awareness and acknowledgement that how many communities of color, and many communities across the board, how we live, work, and play is through various forms of cultural expression and art expression. And a lot of the current environmental movement has been waning in its successes in the past 10, 15 years, you know, in terms of policy that they've been trying to pass. And a lot of it has been due to this compartmentalization that's happened. You know, there's been like a professionalization of environmentalism. And so you have, you know, people who are very technically oriented, who, you know, can speak the speak and work on regulatory issues and the legal framework, be very successful professionally, but at the expense of the grassroots. There's basically very little grassroots organizing that happens on environmental issues now. You're starting to see reinvestment in that, but it's because they're realizing they haven't won. It's really, I mean, everything, all of the wins from the 1970s are being trampled upon, right? And the environment isn't getting better. So it's really, I think there's been sort of an increasing acknowledgement by a lot of the environmental organizations that there needs to be a refocus on organizing. And that, so I think a lot of these strategies are starting to come up again. But at the same time, a lot of communities of color, like you're seeing, you know, coal plants are being shut down. These 2 coal plants are now being shut down in Chicago. And that was a lot in part to environmental justice organizations that have been organizing at the ground level, you know, because they live right there. It's their communities using various methods, but that's just how these communities organize, using arts, culture, song, because it's how we live, work, and play. And so it's hard to even compartmentalize it. Like, is it a strategy or is it an end? You know, it's just it is organizing. But it's due to that on-the-ground work, that long-term leadership development, community-based building, that a lot of these plants have, you know, really been shut down. A lot of the environmental wins you're seeing now, even in this climate, happening. A lot of due to the efforts of these communities over the years. So.
That helps to bail me out. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, you know, it's funny because one of the things that I hear a lot when people send me emails afterwards and say, you know, we're still talking a lot about even technical language around this organizing stuff. So even just kind of, when you talk about this sense of base building, and so really on some level it seems to me like what we're talking about is, so grassroots getting the community to say what they want from their community, right? So give me an example of these coal plants that you're talking about in Chicago, that you've been working with, Little Village, right? Right. Because I don't know if that's an example that people are completely familiar with, and just give a snapshot of that.
Well, you should invite Kim up.
I know. Well, yeah.
So we've been working with Little Village Environmental Justice Organization. They're a grassroots organization in Chicago. And you know, the work we've been doing with them has been community-based research to make sure that the research for their advocacy reflects what the community actually wants. And we can talk more about that, but I think one local example too is, for example, the maps I was talking about earlier, right? So it can be, maps are, okay, really pretty colors and they look very nice, but if they're not, there needs to be a component around it that is part of community understanding, and to get a better understanding about what map making is, right? Because otherwise it becomes this technical thing again. There's map makers, and then there's the community. And the community is not going to get the maps they actually need to fulfill their advocacy needs, to actually fight that facility or fight that, you know, plant expansion, if they don't understand the data limitations and all of that this map embodies, right? So map is a very visual tool. That's why you're seeing all these mapping projects gain a lot of popularity, because communities are attracted, you know, it's having a visual tool where you don't have to use words. It's across languages. If it's a very multicultural community, many languages are spoken, but there needs to be, what we're finding, a lot of work done between the technical people and the community, so that these maps, for one, are understood by the community and are actually governed by the community. So it's not that there's a hierarchy of the technical expertise over community expertise and community knowledge. Because, for example, a lot of data, we didn't even start cataloging a lot of data until the 1970s, right? But there's community members who have lived there since before the 1970s. So community knowledge is actually much more robust than what, you know, the state might be cataloging. So that needs to be acknowledged, and you need to create processes for that data to be inputted into these maps. And then you need to be working with the map developer in order to make sure that it's visually useful for the community. So that's, you know, a form of art, and that can be on a computer, but it can also be drawing, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be so technology oriented. You know, to actually identify your environmental justice concerns, you can just walk around with a map in your community and start drawing. And so is that art? Is that, you know, like, how do you, you know, a lot of community environmental justice organizations that do not have many resources rely on that kind of mapping, where the youth go around and they start saying, you know, this is the good stuff, this is the bad stuff. And there was a project out on the East Coast where these set of 7th graders started mapping the vacant housing in their neighborhood, and they realized they were all in a line. Then they started researching, why are they all in a line? It turns out there was an old river that was there that had been built over, and all the housing that had been built right over that river spot, basically the foundations had been crumbling. And so you had the associated, you know, vacancy issues, abandonment issues, crime issues. And so then these 7th graders then moved to advocate for the removal of those houses and the opening up of the river to their politicians. And it happened. So over time. But this is, you know, this is what I'm talking about.
That's really helpful.
No, I just wanted to ask if other people in the audience could, we could make a song of these examples. So I'll be the base of the song. I will lay the foundation. And then I would love it if you would give examples that you know of. Small, large, things that are in process, things that are finished, ways in which people are engaging with the earth, locally or nationally or internationally, that you know about. And we could have a creative moment with that as well, and give some of our examples that I know are happening in the minds of all of you. So, okay. This is popcorn, so there's no order when you hear it. But what do you? Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Woo, beautiful. Hear the humming happen. Give me one you know about, because you're in one right now. call it?
I call it the summer of love.
The name has changed. I'm right. Larry. Say again. Community gardens everywhere blossoming. Black environmental thought. Twin Cities summer. September 21st and 23rd.
More bikes every day.
Indigenous dance on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. St. Paul or Burnsville, touching rhythms from the earth to 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 1,000 years ago, right here now.
Isn't there a co-op starting in North Minneapolis?
I believe so.
Replanting a food desert?
And organizing against some kind of a processing plant as well.
One in Louisiana, they're practicing jazz funerals for the land, going from place to place where they've been damaged, and picking up people on the way, and not acknowledging and honoring loss as a step toward organizing.
Julie, don't you have chickens in your backyard?
Chickens in Northfield, the Latino farmers. Otherwise, we don't have any money and be able to start their study. Our birds are your playlist and your bike and walk.
There's a library sprouting at Wade House.
Complete streets that get us to school and to work safely, by foot, by bike, or by transit.
Thank you for that.
So yeah, I think I would love to hear what other people, this was actually going to be my question for you, was really, I think Mankwe, you hit it on the head earlier when you said how people are being juiced or turned on or inspired or transformed in their own way from the arts. And that's the thing that I would love to hear from people, where I'd love, as if you're gonna do anything as a result of this, to talk to somebody else about how that transformation process has happened for you. You heard us talk about it a little bit. Well, them, really. Me, I just sit here. But I would love to hear that from other people about how that was transformative, either now or some other time as I see you down the road.
Well, I would say